What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to jump in and talk about the future of Destiny 2, because of course we're in a pretty important time right now. We've just had Forsaken, which has transformed the game. It's safe to say that D2 is in a much better spot than it was a few months ago, but we have even more content on the horizon coming very shortly. So the Black Armory expansion will launch in December. We're going to talk about everything we currently know about Black Armory, and it's looking like it's going to be a pretty good infusion of content. But on top of this, I wanted to give some feedback about the game and some areas where I think we could see some vast improvements. And of course, there have been a lot of topics of conversation in the community. We'll talk about how some of these changes could interact with new content inside of Black Armory. A big component of this, though, will be you guys. Definitely be sure to let me know your opinion down below. What is it that you would most love to see in Destiny's upcoming content? Or are there any things that you feel should really be changed in the game to improve it? Like I said, guys, now is an excellent time for feedback, so be sure to let me know your thoughts below. But now, let's jump into the video. So first up, let's break down what we know about the Black Armory expansion. So it's going to be launching in December. The Black Armory is essentially themed around an armory of weapons and a new faction and vendor that developed a bunch of pretty legendary and unique weapons that we're now going to be able to get our hands on. So it's going to be packed with new exotics and quests. Famous leaker Anon the 9 suggested that Last Word will be coming back in this expansion. We don't know whether that will be linked to the Black Armory itself or whether it's simply a returning exotic, but we have seen a new exotic sniper, and we were even teased by this developer screen that we'll be seeing an exotic railgun of some sort. And with the quality of content we've seen in Forsaken, I feel relatively confident that we're going to get some pretty exciting stuff here. On top of this though, there will be a new activity called Forges of the Chain. That's all that Bungie have actually told us, but once again, Anon the 9 suggested that this is a new horde mode, and the longer you survive, the better you perform inside of this game mode, the better the loot is going to be. So that sounds really good as well. Any depthy new activity packed with loot is going to be a positive for the game. On top of this, we'll get a new raid Lair. Leaks have suggested that we'll be returning to the EDZ, so essentially they will be expanding on the EDZ in some way, but Anon the 9 said that the new raid Lair would take place in the old city. That's something which we don't know anything about just yet. If it's true, it'll certainly be pretty interesting. But we're going to see, of course, new exotics, legendaries, the return of heavy machine guns into the game, new triumphs, collections, crucible content, all of the seasonal stuff that we would typically see in Destiny. So it's going to be a pretty busy one. There's lots of new stuff to look forward to. And this is where I want to talk about some improvements to the game, some things that come up a lot in the community. Like I said, there are a lot of different opinions. A lot of people play this game, so let me know what you think down below. What's most important to you? I should also mention as well, I'm not a game developer. I say all of this stuff from the perspective of somebody playing the game. So let's jump in, talk about some of the new content, alongside some feedback about the current state of Forsaken. So something a lot of people have spoken about would be economy. And there are definitely some holes in the economy right now in the game. Some of this stuff is going to be addressed in updates before Black Armory, so there are going to be some changes, but generally mods, components, and masterworks or masterwork cores have been a big point of conversation. Now I think there's a big opportunity to tie these items in with the gunsmith more than they currently are. Gunsmith is pretty bare bones really. They do have an inventory of weapons that can drop with random rolls, and that's definitely good. Outside of that though, Banshee pretty much just has a mod for armor and a mod for weapons, which changes every day. Now, alongside some economy improvements, I feel like you could pair this with a revamp to Banshee in general. And of course, we don't know exactly how this stuff could change with Black Armory, especially with it being focused around weapons, but I think there would be an opportunity to introduce gunsmith bounties that award mods, the mod components themselves, as well as masterwork cores reliably every single week. And on top of this though, to make it more interesting, there could also be some weekly bounties which do take a bit of time, but can drop randomly rolled tier 10 masterworked weapons. Something like that could be really cool. On top of this though, I thought back to the ghost shell that they introduced for the Leviathan and the raid lairs, and I feel like there's an opportunity there as well. Maybe we could get an exotic gunsmith ghost that came with perks which increase the drop rates or give you extra chances at mod components, masterwork cores, or even randomly rolled legendary drops. Of course, with it having such potent perks, it would be best to earn it through gameplay and not through Eververse, so maybe a quest reward or something like that would be cool, but I feel like there is definitely an opportunity to round out the value of the gunsmith, how that interacts with some of the currency and economy, and to make it generally more interesting. Speaking of how interesting things are, let's talk about Xur. And we can also talk about exotics in general and the drop rates for them. Of course, exotics right now are pretty rare. There's been a lot of feedback about that, Bungie will also be making changes to increase the drop rate of new exotics before Black Armory launches, so we'll have to see exactly how that pans out. However, our friend Xur, man, he's in desperate need of some help. So Bungie opted not to give him Forsaken exotics. I personally think there are opportunities to allow Xur to do that, but absolutely not for free. So what about a Xur exotic bounty? A bounty that came up every week, you could grab it off Xur. Maybe it took a couple of hours to complete, so it would absolutely require some level of investment, and maybe it could guarantee you a new exotic, or could have, an incredibly high drop rate. Maybe this bounty gives you an 80% chance to receive an exotic that you've never received before. It could be kind of a meet in the middle versus what we had previously. And just to bear in mind, that could go alongside improved drop rates in general, and there are different ways that you could tackle that. But also, Xur could potentially sell some kind of legendary rewards. Let me know down below how you think exotics, as well as the exotic vendor, should be handled moving forward. Next though, of course, we're going to be getting a lot of weapons, and from what we can tell, there'll be some pretty unique new archetypes in Black Armory, some things that we haven't seen before. We know that heavy machine guns are coming back to the game. One thing that I'd really like to see for weapons in general would be an infusion of new perks. There are some bonuses hidden in the database which could potentially come in Black Armory, things like High Noon. Readying this weapon grants a brief period of bonus precision damage. Arms Master, where kills with other weapons improves this weapon's damage. Fistfuls of bullets, melee kills overload the magazine to double its capacity. And Onslaught, where the weapon's rate of fire increases as you stack Rampage. There's also Reservoir Burst. When the battery is full, your next burst deals additional damage. And all of these bonuses sound like they're kind of curated and designed specifically to go onto certain weapons. They could be additional exotic traits, they could be traits which go into exotic catalysts, they could be for future Pinnacle Weapons. But on top of this, I'd love to see even more bonuses potentially be added to random rolled weapons. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that they make the pool of potential bonuses really huge like we had in D1, because getting a god roll weapon generally in Destiny 2 is actually a little bit easier in that it isn't diluted by having 40 potential slot bonuses or something absolutely absurd, which you did see on some Destiny 1 weapons. However, I do think it would be nice if we could mix it up a little bit. Like I said, I'm not a game designer, and it could be kind of difficult to beat things like Kill Clip, the Kill Clip Outlaw combination, Rampage, explosive rounds in PvE. The bonuses that people gravitate towards right now have been bonuses that people have gravitated towards for a very long time, so it's certainly pretty challenging, but if there's any way of increasing variety in weapon perks, I'm absolutely game for it. I did speak about Pinnacle Weapons though. For 2 seasons right now, we've had a Pinnacle PvP weapon. So we had the Redrix's Claymore, we've got Luna's Howl right now, and these are really important weapons to PvP in general. They are a couple of driving factors that keep people in the Crucible playlists, but I would love to see a Vanguard Pinnacle weapon or a PvE Pinnacle weapon. Now this is a funny one because, of course, we have the Raid packed with weapons that can roll godly bonuses. There are plenty of opportunities in PvE in general to earn some pretty top-notch weapons, but I'd love to see one that was just absolutely godly, but required a similar amount of skill and investment to what you do see with Luna's Howl. Not necessarily the biggest thing in the world, but there could be an opportunity right there, and this could actually tie in with improvements to strikes in general, as well as a seal or title for the Vanguard, because there currently isn't one for Vanguard. So there are a couple of holes with that side of the game, especially around the strike playlist in general. There are absolutely reasons to do it, but I think there needs to be a little bit more exclusive loot inside of general strikes, or a Pinnacle reward that drives players to complete that content more. Because right now, Nightfalls themselves are in a really good spot. You have the scoring, and then there are also Nightfall exclusives. That all seems really great, but the general strike playlist, I feel, is suffering a little bit at the moment. Let me know what you think could change there. Another thing I'd throw in though, finally, Bungie, I feel it's time that we do Nightfall matchmaking in general. Especially now that we have it in Gambit, we have it in other playlists. I absolutely feel like there should be a power level requirement before you can matchmate for Nightfalls. But considering the difficulty of those activities, I feel like there are a lot of solo players who have to spend a fair amount of time messing around to find teams, when matchmaking could fix it with relatively minimal issues compared to allowing matchmaking in a raid, for example. I just feel like at this point, it's time to add Nightfall matchmaking. Otherwise though, of course, we know that Forges of the Chain will be coming into the game, and considering Bungie have allowed matchmaking into a few more playlists recently, it certainly seems possible that Forges will have general matchmaking as well. The concept of the loot improving as you go further into this Horde mode is pretty interesting as well. I feel like if you look at Gambit or something, the rewards for that are pretty solid really. I would personally really love to see some good enemy-themed armor in the game. We've had a couple of random bits with Forsaken, such as the Baron chest pieces, but I miss the days of the Age of Triumph ornamented raid armor and stuff like that. While there is some pretty nice stuff in Destiny 2, I still feel like the best armor, some of the best cosmetics that we've had in Destiny period were Destiny 1 things. I'd love it if we could get some more enemy-themed armor. But I spoke about the exotic ghost shell for the gunsmith and how we had one for raids last year. That is something that currently I would love to see in Gambit. So when it comes to Forges of the Chain, I'd absolutely love to see some unique cosmetic items that can drop just in that game mode. But instead of being the more generic kind of legendary reskinned Sparrow or something, I'm not trying to be harsh about it. I'm literally saying I think there are some opportunities to create some really cool cosmetics that people would really want to get. And that pretty much ties in to the new raid lair as well. Apparently this will take place in the old city. That is according to a leak. So it may or may not be the case, but speculation about the theme, the location aside, with this being the return of raid lairs, please can we avoid a year one raid lair loot situation? The armor from raid lairs previously for me was really not very exciting. The weapon pools were pretty minimal, so I think there are improvements that can be made there. And it's pretty obvious to most players, and Bungie included, how those things in general could be improved. But once again, more really cool cosmetics would be good. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd love to see intrinsic raid bonuses on raid armor pieces, kind of like what we have with the mods. We do have raid mods right now in Last Wish, which can benefit the game for sure, but I feel like for really high-end PvE gear, it'd be nice to get those bonuses intrinsically so that we can run mods that allow us to keep those sets on anywhere that we go without feeling like we're being hampered. Of course, that is kind of a design decision. Maybe that's not what Bungie wants to go for, and that's also understandable, but I think for raiders, it's important that we keep that same level as what we saw with Last Wish. Make sure that these raid lairs have a solid table of loot to acquire. The final thing I'd mention very briefly would be content management. We've seen some pretty interesting things in terms of content rollout inside of Forsaken. So the first thing would be the Curse Week. This is a really, really cool idea. The only issue that I have noticed a couple of times since Forsaken has launched is that there have been certain weeks that come up where you've got like the maximum Curse Week, Iron Banner, and that also means better spawn rates for the servitor in Gambit. And you'll have like week 3 where everything is really busy and it feels like you have to make a lot of decisions about what content to play through, but then the following week comes around and then there is essentially nothing new. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. It's not a major thing that I'm complaining about, but I feel like, for example, it would have been cool to have the Wish Ender quest come up on one week and then the Malfeasance boss come up on a different week. Sometimes it's felt a little bit like Bungie are burning a lot of content all in one week, and then you have a couple of quiet weeks and then another crazy week. Maybe they can manage the distribution of that content a little bit better. Again, not a major complaint whatsoever. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about that down below. But honestly guys, those are some of the standout things to me. I know there's a lot of conversation about general quality of life and how it interacts with the content, as opposed to I want an exotic that fires 100 throwing knives or something crazy like that. Because honestly, I feel like Bungie's creative side, the concepts, the quality is absolutely there with Forsaken, man. They are nailing it in my opinion. So when you're having a conversation that includes a lot of quality of life stuff and more minor improvements, that's probably because the rest of the game is in a pretty damn good spot. So those are my thoughts guys, but let me know yours down below. PvPers, what is it that you think needs to happen in the Crucible to improve quality of life? Solo players, I'd love to hear from you. If you play a lot solo, are there any really standout things that you'd love to see that would make the game better for you? The evolution of Destiny is pretty much never over, so I'd love to hear your thoughts guys. But if you have enjoyed this video, a rating is very much appreciated. I'll be sure to cover everything related to Black Armory as we get the full details about the mini DLC coming up soon. So if you want to keep up to date, be sure to hit subscribe if you have enjoyed the content. You can also turn on notifications if you don't want to miss out on anything. But I appreciate you tuning in guys, and whatever you do, I hope you have an awesome day.